over in Vienna, Austria, and he said, you know what, before we eat and I roll it out, a nice Friday lunch for my wife and family, I'll join you because these are important topics that we want to discuss here this morning. So, Yael, thank you so much once again for joining us on the Hot Talk Morning Show.
I'm here now. Yeah. On the air.
Yael, how we doing, my man? I gave you like the biggest boisterous opening and introduction that anybody a guy could give, and then there was nothing on the other end.
Well, it's all right. I mean, Joe, I got the meat sweats anyway after eating all these ribs. So whatever, if you're giving me the props, if you're pumping me up, all the better.
How were those ribs
this morning? A lot of stuff happening.
They're
delicious, man.
Yeah.
And I'm using a lot of North Carolina, South Carolina style barbecue on everything that I cook. So I'm trying to stay proud, even if I'm using charcoal in the middle of nowhere.
And are you in the middle of nowhere? Where are you right now?
Oh, I'm in rural Austria, very, very far away, near the Czech border. Things a bit more, a bit calmer, a bit cooler here, trying to escape the heat, and still catching up on the news, though. A lot of stuff happening.
Hey, by the way, and again, I don't mean to disrupt your family picnic here today, in the middle of nowhere, 6,000 miles away from our broadcast location, but I do want to pat your back just a moment and maybe a slap on the rear end, once or twice, because last time you joined us, we weren't necessarily going to get into this, and I still to this day have not seen one national news outlet in our country here in the United States, that is, provide the details that you gave us the morning that Taylor Swift's concerts were canceled in Vienna because of the thwarted terror attack that led to the arrest of three young people in your neck of the woods. I mean, you gave us very detailed information. After that, I was like, why does anyone got to go anywhere else? Why for the news of the day, whether it be local, state, national, global in this instance, when you can get it all right here over 4 hours every morning?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's amazing what you're giving to the people of Myrtle Beach and in the surrounding area. I mean, you got to have some international correspondence plugged in every now and then, so I'm happy to provide that whenever I can. You guys are living the dream out there at the beach. I can give a little bit of analysis and then hopefully come visit y'all pretty soon.
And that's kind of what we try to do, right? We want to bridge the gap, and we focus a lot on some of the stuff going on right in our backyard. But every now and then there are national topics and discussions that could eventually or do impact you, your household, your neighbors, and your community. And then that's when we got to tap into those resources like we are here this morning for the next few minutes. And the reason why I reached out was because later on today, with the eyes on the presidential race, with the bait and switch that was pulled by the Democrats just a few weeks ago, today the Democrat candidate for President of the United States, Kamala Harris, will be in our region during a campaign event up in Raleigh. She's expected to roll out her economic plan, and I knew this was a lot of meat on the bone here when we talk about price control, rent control. You're hearing that $25,000 they want to give as a down payment for first-time or first-generation home buyers to, as they will say a little later on, this morning, they want to get the marketplace going. They want to drive home sales, with this $25,000 incentive, I guess, for people who might be priced out of the market with the down payment or can't afford a down payment. But let's first get to price controls. This has been tried over time here in our country and elsewhere around the world. Give us the Econ 101 layman sort of way of looking at what price controls do in the short term and how they impact us in the long term.
Yeah, and I think we should give props to the Harris campaign for at least recognizing that there is a affordability crisis amongst a lot of Americans whenever they go to the grocery store, whenever they're trying to buy things for their family or fill up their shopping carts. They're seeing that things are a lot more, and people are having to pay for that. And that means that you have less disposable income to pay on other things. Now, where I think a lot of people will differ, and a lot of economists have already looked at this, and, we don't have full indications of the plan because there's not much written on the website, so we only know from speeches, and I think the press has given little prompters with some of the examples of the policies. But if we're looking at what she's talking about with price controls, it has to do with what she calls price gouging. Now, in North Carolina, South Carolina, we have price gouging statutes that exist, whether it relates to emergencies or if you have a hurricane. You don't want someone who's charging $150 a gallon for gasoline. Economically, you can make the argument, but that's neither here nor there. What she's talking about here is that grocery stores are the villain, and that grocery stores have been price gouging people. This is just really not true. We've been in a global inflationary crisis. It's been more acute in the United States because of all the deficit spending that we've had, all the checks that went in the mail, and everyone had all of this free money. And with that money, you spend, and prices go up naturally. And that's what's happened the last 2 or 3 years. The Biden-Harris administration has been responsible for this. And what she's proposed is that they're going to use the Federal Trade Commission, or they're going to use attorney generals to go after the Food Lion, the Piggly Wiggly, the Walmarts, and try to cut down on what they call price gouging. Now, it's not very clear how this really legally could be done. It's pretty unconstitutional. There's not really any proof or data that people have been price gouging when we actually look at what are the market prices and costs. What this will really do, though, is put a chill on many of those people. And while there might be caps on certain prices, all it really means is that people are going to go out and buy more. We're going to have a hoarding. We're going to have a lot of people who are going to experience shortages. The market is not able to work when you cap the prices of certain things. And it's only going to end up to consumers being harmed in the long run. And unfortunately, that seems to be the opening salvo of the economic policies of the Harris administration.
I mean, like you said, it sounds like peaches and cream, right? Oh, they're going to keep the cost of my cereal at, $4.99 a box. Sounds all great and all, but then when you get to the grocery store, and as you kind of mentioned, your neighbor bought up the entirety of the Honey Nut Cheerios for $4.99, then that caused a disruption in the natural free flow of the marketplace, right? So it causes, as you said, disruptions, which then leads to, and we all have experienced before, whether it be with toilet paper or it's gasoline for like a day or two when we had the disruption of the pipeline, it leads to shortages. And then hysteria sets in, and it sets in pretty quick, right, amongst the population when they can't get what they're used to getting.
Exactly. I mean, you've had instances where you've had, a bad season of certain vegetables, or you've had eggs that didn't come in as much. And because there was a lot of demand for it and there wasn't enough supply, well, prices went up. And that was a natural market response. People perhaps bought fewer eggs, and those who could afford it bought them. And what you're doing here is you're imposing a government policy that sets the price, and it limits the ability for not just the grocery store, but the producer to profit on that transaction, the people who are driving the trucks, the people who are unloading the stuff from the trucks. So you think you're hurting, the grocery store CEOs, but realistically, all you're doing is making it more difficult for those producers to get their products to market. You're making it more difficult for all of those people to profit. And we don't get those savings passed on to us as consumers as we normally would. Unfortunately, it's just going to be fights at the grocery store, trying to figure out what products to get. I don't think this really has any viability. It's a lot of messaging. It's a lot of signal, but it's not really ever going to come to pass. So she does get failing marks because this is just not an economically feasible thing. Economists don't agree on too much, but there are a few solid things. They don't like price controls. They don't like rent control. When the government caps the price of something or subsidizes the demand, this is not something that any economist would favor. And hopefully voters will be more educated on that here come November.
Well, that said, and we're trying to do that right now in terms of inform and educate, in terms of what some of these policy proposals could eventually lead to. And this is not partisan. This is economists are known to be, the least partisan. These are the numbers and the statistics and the ways in which basic econ 101 supply and demand is something that you hear often, basic econ 101. And it just is what it is. And it doesn't mean, I prefer Donald Trump over Kamala Harris. It just means this is the sort of thing that could impact us if, in fact, these policies are eventually implemented.
Yeah, and I think, there's a lot of stuff you can criticize Trump on when it comes to economic policies.
Tariffs being one of them.
When it comes to, tariffs, just making it more expensive for people to import products and you as a consumer having to pay more. But I do have to give Trump credit. He had a press conference the other day with probably the first time he's eaten Fruit Loops, but he had a big box of Fruit Loops there, and he talked about the price of butter, and he made it relevant to ordinary people. And unfortunately, this whole idea that these grocery store CEOs are making a killing. I mean, the profit margins on grocery stores are something like 3 to 4%. When you compare that to big tech companies that are like 50, 60%, it's peanuts. And this is the same populist playbook we saw in Canada. Trudeau had a similar commission going after the grocery store guys. The grocery store people are not the reason that food is expensive. It's because of everything that you've done in the economy, the inflation, the money printing, the deficits, the amount of debt the governments have. You chase all that good money after bad. It just means prices go up and we have to pay the price.
Yeah, Yael, before we let you go, you mentioned another timely issue because there are whispers around certain parts of our region, given the fact that real estate prices have skyrocketed over the last 5-7 years within our region, and because there's a demand and limited supply. Once again, returning back to Econ 101, we live in a place where a lot of people want to come to, and the property values not too long ago, coupled with the taxes, were ridiculously cheap and too hard not to pass up on. So there's talks now, of course, not only in parts of our region, but elsewhere around the country where they've tried to implement this rent control. And again, on the surface, sounds great. Hey, I know as a renter for the next 4 years, so long as I stay in this specific place where my family's living, that it's only going to cost me $1,800 a month to rent out this house from a landlord. Where do we run into trouble when we talk about rent control?
Yeah, what you really want to figure out to do is how do you get more houses, how do you get more apartments on the market? And if you cap the amount that a landlord can make, anyone knows this, I know that people are very familiar with vacation rentals. If you say that you cap the amount that people are going to be able to make on rent payments or vacation rentals, that means you're less likely to put it out on the market. You're less likely to do that. You'd rather either sell the house or just use it for some other purpose because you know that your costs are not going to be covered by whatever that rent is. And we have a real, actual great experiment being done down in Argentina. The president, Javier Milei, got rid of rent control, and you had terrible inflation, terrible policies. He turned it over, and now you've had something like 80% more housing stock available. It's true, some rents are going to be pretty high, but some are going to be lower. And you offer all of that additional space. People can rent out stuff. People can figure out their budgets. If you just cap the amount that people are going to pay in rent, you're really just capping how much landlords can earn from putting their properties out on the market. And the last thing we want to do is restrict the amount of housing supply that we have. I think we should be building a lot more houses. We should be building a lot more apartments. But you don't do it by saying to the people building them, yeah, you're going to be limited in how much income you're going to earn from this. It's just not really the way to prosperity.
Yeah, Yael, I know you are trying to get a little R&R with the family, and thank you so much again for trying to break that down for us as in simplest terms as possible, just to give everyone sort of a preview on some of the things that you're going to hear today and continue to hear, obviously, through the next couple of months. And then every election cycle, these same buzzwords tend to pop up when we hear about inflation, price control, controlling the rent, and trying to get the government involved in the free marketplace. It oftentimes doesn't work out the way they want it to, does it?
No, not at all. It's, we've lived through this. Richard Nixon imposed his own price controls, disastrous impact. Many governments, basically every socialist government in history, they have price controls, and it means that the people are going to be less well off. I hope that's just not something that will be the future of our country, but that's why we keep fighting for it, fighting to educate people and make sure that they make the right decision when it comes down to voting day.
All right, Yael, thanks so much, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your rack of ribs, and we'll catch up soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Joe, and thank you so much to the Carolinas.
All right. That's our friend Yael Ossowski from the Consumer Choice Center, consumerchoicecenter.org. He's out there in Europe right now, where he's a resident in Vienna, Austria, enjoying some vacation with his family, and wanted to call in. He said, hey, this is an important topic. It's going to be all over the news today. Why not be the first to kind of break it down for you here on the Hot Talk Morning Show?